All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Alex Obenauer, and I'm going to be talking tonight about something a little higher level than what I've usually talked about with the ACM. I think my last talk was probably a year and a half ago. It was very bits and bytes. We were working with PHP. A lot has happened in that last year and a half, and so I'll kind of give that to you as a context for this talk. So I kind of want to talk about something a little more higher level. It's so much higher level that it's not even just related to computer science. Do we have any non-computer science majors here? Awesome. All right, what are we looking at? What majors?
ISC.
ISC? Mechanical. One more time?
Mining and minerals.
Mining and mineral. Math. Civil. Okay. Great. I'm great. I'm glad that we have a variety out here. This is definitely not something that's specific to computer science. I myself am a senior computer science major here, graduating in May. I'm in the senior chaos right now, doing the whole job search thing, as many of you are currently stressed out doing as well, I'm sure. Getting some nods, so yeah. So tonight I wanted to talk to you about something. This has come out of kind of two, I'll give you some context. So this has come out of kind of two sad stories, right? So I'll share with you those sad stories, but it's okay because what we'll do is we're turning these around into something that's more motivating, something more inspirational, okay? So the first one is this guy, right? So we all know this guy. This is somebody who's very inspiring. He's been called a visionary by pretty much anyone who's written an obituary about him. And this is a sad story. This is the first sad story, right? Steve Jobs leaving us for the better life. And we have to fight our own battles now. We don't have the man. I see we have a lot of Microsoft people in here. I'm not getting a lot of nods on that one, but that's okay. That's okay. No matter which side you fall, a lot of people can kind of agree on him having such strong vision. One of the things I took away from the night that he died was how would we at Virginia Tech memorialize that, right? But that's memorializing his death is not something that he would want. He was very much a doer. There's a story that when he came back to Apple in '98, '97, the first thing he saw was an office room that was just filled with a bunch of old Macs, like a museum. He was like, "Get these out of here. Give these to a museum. We got stuff to do, right?" And so that's very much a piece of this talk. How do we find our own visionary within us, and how do we act on that? How do we do things with that, right? The second sad story. Who has this sweet app on their phone? Anyone? We got one, two. All right. Now raise your hand if it works. Right? Okay. Here's an app that I poured, not alone, but I'm talking about me right now. So I poured 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears into. Okay. It was beautiful. Started a company around it. Okay. So VT Bus Tracker built it in 3 months with 3 guys. To the tune of like $35,000. Did it always work? No. Did all the clients look very good? No. And so we worked on version 2. This was what version 2 was. It was in a company that we started in December, got bought out in February, and I had to leave the company 2 months ago. They're still hacking away at it, but for me personally, it was a total and utter failure. Also, no one there that's still there is anyone from Virginia Tech. So as you know, it's not working in Blacksburg right now. I hope that changes, but as of right now, that's not a thing, which is really sad, right? But I spent the better part of 10 months, most of those, half of those, working probably 80, 90-hour work weeks writing code. Once you kind of get into that as students, we don't do that. There's a lot of other things like other classes like public speaking and technical writing that kind of pad that time that we kind of despise. But once I was doing 80 and 90 hours a week writing code, I kind of needed to like step back and connect with the English language a little bit so that I knew when people got back from the summer I could still speak to people like a normal person. So I started writing little essays. I started noting things that, in this company, in this startup that I co-founded and co-owned, what were we doing right and what were we doing wrong? There were a lot of things we were doing wrong that I identified and that I just didn't have the authority to really make that change throughout our entire management. So I would write an essay on that. There were things where I noticed that maybe we stumbled on something accidental, but it worked great. And I was like, why doesn't everyone do this? So I wrote an essay on that. I ended up writing like 60 to 70 pages worth of essays just on different things, and not just specific to businesses and not just specific to code, but like how do you take a project and how do you make it really successful? How do you make it something that's worth living for? And how do you make it work? How do you work with people? How do you make it successful? Tons of essays. So these essays, I wasn't really sure what to do with them. And it's something that I'd love to publish at some point in time. But so for now, these essays, half of them, are what turned into this presentation. And so that's what I'll be discussing today. And this is what it's kind of coming out of. So the first thing, kind of one of the bigger ones, is this 3-step process. This is something I try to apply to any project now. Ideate, simplify, execute. It's very simple. Simple, get it? But all three are necessary. A lot of people kind of skip over the middle one. That's why it's in red. So, I love ideas. I live in ideas. I love bouncing ideas around with people. Is anyone else that kind of person? It's not everyone's strength, but is anyone else kind of an ideating person? Love the ideas, right? Great. So, that's something that I very much love. Okay, and for those idea people, you came up with a brilliant idea, right? And then within, 10 minutes later, it's turned into this whole forest of ideas, right? Yeah, okay. So then it's this huge, crazy thing, but it is so exciting. There's so many pieces to it. The numbers are massive. You're like, this is great. There's tons of ideas that spawned out from this original one. And that's where a lot of people then take that forest of ideas and then they execute, okay? And that's that whole premature scaling. I read somewhere some group, I think they were associated with Y Combinator, they did a study on failed startups. One of the biggest early indicators of a startup that was going to fail was premature scaling. And a lot of that often comes from this, from your forest of ideas, and you switch right to execute. A lot of people miss that middle stage, simplify, right? So the step after ideating, is to look at your forest of ideas. What about your original idea led to all these others? What about it was so incredible that it inspired you to come up with all these other things, and all these huge numbers are popping out about people that are going to love this thing and pay for it? The importance is to find out, what is that essence? What is it about that seed of an idea that grew to all these others? And what do you want to accomplish with this project? Once you can answer those questions, then you can execute. Once you can kind of simplify it back down, then you can execute. Those ideas are great, and you should hang on to them. But you can't skip over the simplify aspect with any project, really. The next one, every idea is worth pursuing. Okay. Some of the best examples of successful companies started out doing something completely different. I'm sure you all know. What are some examples of that, right? So companies that today, they're real famous, they're doing something great, they're successful, they did not start doing that.
Gore.
One more time?
Gore.
Gore?
Gore-Tex was a mistake. Yep.
What were they doing?
Like Gore-Tex, the rain-proof breathable material was a
Okay.
mistake. I'm not sure what they were doing, but they were trying to...
Yeah, they were trying to basically, it's a long story, but originally the first thing that Gore made was actually, I've worked there for 2 years, but they made, they used to coat like electrical cables with it because it had dielectric properties, and then they realized that the waterproof properties were actually an incredible strength. That's when they had the fabrics division, and then Gore-Tex kind of took off.
Yep.
But another example is I think Microsoft actually didn't originally make operating systems. They were originally making like spreadsheets and stuff, and Bill Gates was like, oh, let's buy some OSs and sell it to IBM.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah. Things, where you were solving problems, you came up with a solution to one little thing, but it's kind of amazing, and you didn't really realize that right away. And this whole thing maybe doesn't work out, but you solved this problem, right? Other examples? Does anyone else have any others?
Viagra.
What's that?
Nintendo.
Nintendo?
Started making card games.
Okay. Nintendo, actually, yeah, I just read that one a couple weeks ago. Nintendo started making card games. I forgot about that, yep.
Post-it notes.
Post-it notes, they were looking to make the strongest adhesive glue, correct? And they made I guess, the weakest adhesive glue can get, right? But that was something huge. Others, PayPal. Does anyone know how PayPal started? Mobile app on your Palm Pilot. This is before, you know, your Palm Pilots were connected to 3G and stuff. And, you know, you could make a transaction with your Palm Pilot. You got to connect it up, dial it in, you know, probably through AOL, and process all your transactions at the end of the day. That's not something people were comfortable with. But they came up with a pretty good solution. Another one, Facebook, right? Everyone knows that story. What did it start out as? Comparing pictures of women to animals, right? And now it is the biggest growing social network and the largest social network.
The internet itself.
What's that?
The internet itself started out as a way for colleges to communicate.
Internet itself, absolutely. Yep. So there's tons of examples, right? Every idea is worth pursuing. Maybe it's you're looking at an idea, you're like, that's pretty cool, but it's not, you know, insane, right? But you know, if that's what you got to work on it. You're going to come up with some pretty cool things in the interim, and you will. And those may take off in completely different things. So don't skip over an idea. If you had to pitch to me the idea of comparing pictures of girls to animals, I wouldn't have given you the time of day, right? That's not going to be successful. But what came out of it really, really was, right? To clarify, I'm not encouraging you guys to make an app that compares, just to make that clear. Another big one, solve real problems. A lot of times, especially with students, you know, I kind of hear, oh, you know, I can't quite do that yet because I haven't learned this, or I haven't taken that class, or I don't know Hadoop, or, you know, whatever. So a lot of times people kind of avoid the real problems because they're a little intimidated. They're a little afraid of failure, right? I don't want to give an example of that because that's actually kind of bad. But, you know, so one of the biggest things that I've learned, you know, in the last couple of years of these projects is really just go at those real problems. Don't be afraid of them, and don't be afraid of falling down on them. This is a quote from Apple's Think Different campaign, and I think it really speaks to that concept pretty well, right? Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So the moral of these two slides is be crazy, right? Be as crazy as you can be. Here's a big one, talk, okay? Who here has written and or deployed a mobile application of any kind? There's more than that, okay? Okay, who's written a mobile application? All right, who's built a website? Let's make it easy, there we go. Since that happened, how many times, so raise your hand if you've heard people coming up to you saying, oh, I have this great idea for this website, I have this great idea for an app, and then they pitch it to you, right? You know, and then you're sitting there thinking, and you're like, wow, that sounds horrible, right? Tell me I'm wrong, okay? I have that happen all the time, okay? One of your first instincts after, you know, 3 months of this might be to kind of be like, every time people comes up to you, be like, yeah, I've heard it, and it sucks, and I'll tell you that now, right? But one of the things that I would stress is to actually listen to these ideas, okay? One of them is going to be very cool. You know, you might have to listen to 100 comparing girls to animals ideas, but one of them is actually going to be something interesting, something that could be successful, something you like. The other thing too is listening to people's ideas, listening to people's problems. That's where you see, and this especially for the technology people in here, you know, that's where you get to see how does technology fit into society? What are, you know, people's problems? How do people perceive the world? And how can technology, how can what I know how to do, so what I know how to do is write software, how can what I know how to do as writing software be a part of that? How can it make people's lives easier? Listening to people helps you kind of put a radar out there. Understand, what are people feeling? What do people think that their problems are? What do people think that their solutions should be? Even if you know a better solution, which you probably do because you're the expertise in your field. Listening to these ideas, listening to these problems, it's huge. Putting these ideas and problems together from tons of people, it really helps you get a lay of the landscape, really start understanding the world around you. Here's a big one, okay? So Farmville, hugely successful. Who's played Farmville? We'll go for that. Okay. I'll admit, I've played Farmville. Okay. Clicking, dragging, clicking, dragging, clicking, dragging. Right. I never would have thought that would be successful. Okay. Farmville. 8, 9 months before Farmville came out. Does anyone know this? Farmtown? Farmtown came out. Okay. It was the same exact thing. It looked exactly the same. You click cows, you click corn, and you get fake farm dollars, and you can buy tractors to make clicking cows and corn quicker, right? Months before Farmville came out. That was entirely luck, right? Zynga is now publicly traded, correct? I think they went IPO, yep, okay. Publicly traded, hugely successful. I think they just had actually a downturn of a quarter, so it's funny I'm using this example. But for a while they're hugely successful. Farmville, massive. It broke into mainstream media. Just like Twitter, it gets mentioned. What gave Farmville the advantage? Well, it was pretty much the exact same thing. Farmtown even had beat them to market by almost a year. It's entirely luck. This kind of sucks, right? To know that it's entirely luck that your project is the one that's going to come out as successful. But there's a catch to this. You can increase your luck, okay? And your luck comes from, you write some computer science, so it's an equation, so bear with me on that. So luck equals creating things times networking. It's a certain amount of doing and a certain amount of talking about it, talking to people. You can, by doing more and talking more, by making more things, by finding more failures and finding more successes, and by talking to more people about these projects, about other things, about their projects, that's how you increase your luck. That's how you come across these chance happenings that ultimately kind of lead to your project's success, whatever it may be, software or not. A huge, huge part of it is the luck aspect to become successful. But you can improve that by doing more, executing, right? And talking to more people. This is probably one of the biggest things that I noticed in starting up a company. It has a lot to do with this. Being successful really is luck, but you have to kind of hack it. Here's another one I love, right? Take a stand. People love a drama, okay? So just this season, when has the stadium been the most packed? What was the loudest, most packed game? Miami, right? That was a drama. Okay, that was a conflict. That was an issue. If we had lost, that would have been the end of our season. Okay, so that stadium was packed the last second. Did anyone see it actually registered on the seismogram? Did anyone else see that?
Yep.
It's like the second time a college football game has ever done that, which is pretty cool. Now, when was the stadium most empty? App State, right? Well, and Clemson, because that was, yeah. Before that, even though App State, right? We went, what, 66 and 10? 13? Whatever, it was like 66 and something small. Okay? That place cleared out at halftime. People love a drama, okay? So, instead of being a nice guy all the time, your project should take a stand. When you're developing your project, and it has core values, you really should take a stand against something else so that you know what it's not. I'm working on this new project where I'm trying to develop and design and develop a more intuitive email client. Okay, that project, one of the biggest things is that it takes a stand against companies that are just too mundane to come up with something innovative, to make something more intuitive. Instead, they just build something that matches the protocol that it sits on. And so it takes a stand against that aspect of laziness, almost, right? And so by kind of spitballing at some of those bigger companies, at those bigger projects, it can take a stand, and people love to see that. People love to attach themselves to a movement that they agree with. So taking a stand against something else can really help you and can really help identify you, help you know what your project is not and what it is, and can really help people that want to identify with that project. Here's another one, kind of an extension of that. Okay? Stick to your guns. When you come up with an idea, a project, when you start developing something and it has a goal, don't lose sight of that. One of the things, so Hungry Hokie, does anyone know of and or have Hungry Hokie? Use Hungry Hokie. All right, a couple people hand there. Okay. So the dining services, has anyone looked on the dining services calendar website thing, ours? All right, raise your hand if you love it, right? Okay, it's kind of a pain. You have to click like 5 times to finally see when something is open, and then you have to go back and click the next one, right? Total pain, kills me. So about a year ago, I wrote an app, just PHP, and it just screen scrapes that data and puts it into a single app where you go to hungryhokie.com, and it has logos just of all the dining centers that are open right now. That's it. Very simple. Okay, and this was so useful to just me. Okay, but then I found it was useful to a lot of other people. The feed gets hits, especially on the weekend. It gets hit a couple hundred times a day. On the weeks it lulls down. But so the goal of that was to be as simple as possible, right? To be the opposite, taking a stand against dining services, to be simple. When it came to make version 2 over the summer, I got a lot of feature requests. One of them, let's see, some were to put in nutritional facts. Some were to include the daily specials. Some were to have a meter showing how busy that dining center was at the time. I was like, yeah, I'll get on that. I'll let you know when it's not. And I thought about all these things, and none of them would fit the bill, right? Because the goal was to be as dead simple as possible. So instead, for version 2, I just made it even simpler to access it. So now it has a phone number that you can text or call. You call it, it'll read to you what's open right now. You text it, it'll text you back. That doesn't add any weight to it. So that stuck to the original goals. The project had to stick to its guns, right? And I had to explain that to a lot of people. They were like, "Oh, that's stupid. Why isn't there calories by each dining center per roll?" Because that's not what it's for. That's not why it works so well for so many people. So stick to your guns with your project. Another one. All right. So who said this? They come up with this great idea. They really develop it, and 2 days later found out it's already out there. Raise your hand. It's happened to me. Okay. And then you're just kind of like, you're real bummed, you know? You're like, well, this project sucks now, right? Don't stop there, okay? That's really a chance to innovate, to maximize, to see, why was I so passionate about this idea? What is it that this guy is doing wrong? What sucks about his approach? How can I make it even better? How can I really maximize on it? How can I innovate it, right? Don't give up. If you had some great idea and you had such serious passion for it for 2 or 3 days, don't just let go of that because some other guy did kind of the same thing. Find a way to really liven it up, to innovate on it. I have a really good example of this that just got released a couple of days ago. So here's Apple's calendar app on the iPhone. It's a calendar. Okay, it's pretty boring. It's useful. You can put all your dates and information in there. But at the end of the day, it's a calendar. What are you going to do to make that better? How would you ever innovate on that? Any ideas? I'm not trying to come up with anything. Does anyone have any ideas? Right? How could you make a calendar better? Right? It's a calendar. Well, then about 2 or 3 days ago, this guy came along. He's called TouchBase. He costs 99 cents. Here's what they did. Okay? You can look at a list view of your calendar items. It's pretty big. But when you click on one, and when you start it up, here's how you view an event. Okay? It automatically detects the people that you listed that are going to be in there. So you say lunch with so-and-so. It says, all right, so-and-so's in your contacts, links it, right? That person's listed. Okay? And then you've got all these really useful functions. You can just smack text 5 minutes late, and it automatically just texts 5 minutes late to all those people that are going to be there with you. 10, 20 plus minutes. I'm here early. It's very easy, right? And then you can call and just click the person's contact to call. So instead of being in your calendar and you're like, yeah, that is at 7:30, but I'm going to be a little late, you know, close it, find their contact, call them, that sort of thing. It's blended right in, map. You know, if you put a location in the location field, it'll search it and put it in that map right there. And you can pull up directions to it immediately, right? So they just, in a huge, huge way, innovated on the calendar. They thought about it, instead of just putting out the formatted data that users want to see, what if we tie in those actions as well, right? And so this is really interesting. This is somewhere where somebody innovated on calendar applications, right? Whoever thought that that could happen? But I love it. I've been using it for the last couple of days, and it all, when you launch it, it shows whatever's happening next, which is great for me because I don't plan far ahead. So it's good to see what's happening immediately next instead of having to look at a list of things that's going to happen. MVP. What does it stand for? Anyone? Lean Startup Methodology.
Minimum viable product.
Minimum viable product. Okay. Discovering your minimum viable product is huge. Okay. What a minimum viable product is, so when you come up with something, you know, say you want to make a total project management system. A minimum viable product could be the context management in that. Okay. Your minimum viable product is how small, quote for this, right? Okay. The hard part is to figure out the fewest possible features that could possibly accomplish your company's goals. This is Eric Ries. He's the creator of the Lean Startup Methodology. He has a book out. I think it's a bestseller actually now. Fantastic book. And this isn't just for companies, for projects, right? For anything. Going lean means a lot of things, but finding your minimum viable product means finding out what's the smallest that it can be and still be a deliverable, useful product. What this means is that you're launching a whole lot earlier. You're getting important feedback. You build momentum. So instead of working on something for a year, you work on something smaller for a month, and then you get feedback a month later. That builds momentum. That helps you really see how should I shape the development of this project. That's kind of a huge piece to it. And doing something like this can really help you move your project along. It's actually, they've done a lot of studies now, because it's pretty recent. They've done a lot of studies now. Using a minimum viable product has led to a lot of companies being a whole lot more successful than they were beforehand. Here's another one that I'm a very strong believer in. Play to your strengths. Okay, a lot of people, especially in this country, it's kind of a identify what your weakness is and work hard on them. Okay? I'm saying do the exact opposite, right? When you're good at something, working on that for an hour gives you 1,000% of a result. When you're bad at something, working on that for 100 hours is going to give you like a 5% result. If something's inherently not your strength, you're going to have to spend so much more time on it to make a worse deliverable from it. So play to your strengths. This also means find people that have contrasting strengths. A lot of times it's very easy to kind of get in bed with the people that are very alike, very similar to you. But instead, really focus on finding those people that have competing strengths. And then you can build a more well-rounded dynamic. So know what your strengths are and use your strengths, apply them. There's this great thing, StrengthsFinder. Has anyone heard of it? Great, okay, yeah, so Gallup polls made this thing called StrengthsFinder. I'm not going to talk about it now. It's something that's really amazing, right? I urge you to look online for it. There's some great books about it. Each book comes with a little code, and you take this little quiz. It's like 150 questions in like 30 minutes, and you just rip through it. It comes out of dozens of years of research on successful people, on leaders and followers, on all kinds of things about people. And they build some rock solid questions that really figure out what are your strengths, okay? And one of the things that I found was that one of my strengths is maximizer. One of the strengths I don't have is developer. What that means is that I'm not the guy that's going to come up with the iPhone. I'm the guy that's going to come up with the sweet app that's on it, right? Because I can really maximize on an idea. So instead of focusing my energy on trying to come up with some crazy new thing, I know that instead I can focus on looking at things, platforms, frameworks, and how can I maximize on that. So play to your strengths. This will seriously benefit you. Another one, inject personality into what you do. A lot of times people turn the I into we, they add this layer of abstraction between them and the people that they want to interact with. And that's where things lose personality. Your project should have personality in it. It should have your personality in it. It should have the brand's personality in it, the personality that you really want it to have. This allows people to emotionally connect with your project. I have a couple of examples here for this one. These are software type examples. Actually, one of them's not, so I'll go through these, right? So here's a pricing chart. It doesn't look like your standard pricing chart, right? It is dogs above it, okay? And that seems a little crazy. This is a company that builds software for companies and individuals. That doesn't scream like, professionals to me. Those are just dogs. What's really neat is these dogs, right? These are the dogs of the developers in the office. 4 of the developers have dogs, and these are their, I don't know dog breeds, but these are their specific breeds. And that really injects their own personality, their own flavor into the application. When customers found this out, that these were office dogs, they loved it. They thought that was very cool. It connected them to the project on an emotional level. Zappos, has anyone heard of Zappos? Okay. One thing that they do whenever has anyone gotten a delivery from them? One thing they do is they put the Zappos family started it, and they have a list of like 8 or 9 core values. And each box comes with one of the core values listed on it. And that really injects their personality into it. Okay, now for this next example, I want to play a game. This game is Name the Rich Guy. Okay? You've got ConvertBot for $2 and Converted exclamation mark for $1. Who's rich here? It's ConvertBot. Okay? Top app for weeks on the App Store. And why? They're both designed very nicely, right? They've got kind of custom UIs. It's not some kind of crappy UI. But here's the thing about ConvertBot. This was unfair. I didn't show this to you beforehand. So if you lost that game, that's okay. You can work yourself with points in a minute here. It comes from this company called Tapbots. And they make all these apps that have the personality of robots. Tweetbot. I have this on my phone. It's really gimmicky, but it has a personality. It's based around robots. It's kind of scary, actually. But that really is its personality. You've got WeightBot, CalcBot, and ConvertBot. And they all look like robots. There's a certain personality in that they put into all their products and even their company name, Tapbots. You can identify with that. You can recognize that. So instead of just having 2 list views and picking 2 different units, you can connect with something that has more personality. Here's another big one. I've always, who shares this, right? So when you kind of complete a project, not a school project, I know how those go. When you complete a project, you're not really satisfied with it until you put that extra layer of icing on top. Something that really gets in there to kind of wow the people that are going to use it, right? I got some heads nodding. Okay, that's good. Dr. Harrison calls this your lagniappe. Now, has anyone taken a class with Dr. Harrison here? All right, so lagniappe. What is that? Someone? Anyone? Okay. Something extra. Right, so in France, it's something extra added to, I could be saying this wrong, I don't know French. But as I understand it, it's something extra that a chef adds to your meal that they think would really complement that meal. Free of charge. It's just something extra. With Bus Tracker, this was the counter of how many people are on a bus. You tap on a bus, 5 minutes till it gets there, cool. 49 people are on there, whoa, right? Creepy, but cool, okay? Your lagniappe is something extra. It's something that goes beyond the status quo. Something that challenges the sufficient answer. That's what wows the people that interact with your project. This is something that's really important. This is what sells you without you ever having to sell yourself. Here's another big one. Software people are going to recognize this. Release early, release often. Same methodology, right? Same with the MVP concept. Launch something early and update it frequently. You build momentum, get a lot of customer feedback, update frequently. Keep hacking away at it. Don't just put something small out there and kind of see what happens with it, because it will probably kind of decline after some time. It's pretty small. Keep working on it. Keep pushing stuff out there. That's what keeps people interested. The big thing with this is to just launch things, right? Turn ideas, turn your great ideas, other people's great ideas, into a reality. Here's one that I'm a very firm believer in. Okay, and this is the last one, best for last. Invest in yourself. And I phrased it this way. I could have said a couple other things. Bootstrap it. Don't receive external funding. Don't get bought out. Are you noticing a theme here? Just remind you guys from earlier in the presentation. Okay, I have gotten bought out before. Don't get bought out. Bootstrap it as long as you can. Invest in yourself. I say invest in yourself because that's one of the biggest things going for that methodology. Okay, by investing in yourself, by bootstrapping it, by making your own way with the people on your team, with your project, you are inherently invested in everything that your project is doing or your company is doing. You're taking total ownership over everything. Everything. From the design of your business card to the project itself. That really invests you on a whole different level into what you're doing. You get to do what you want to do with all of it. The flip side to that is, having investors means there's competing interests. Interests that go completely against the goal of your project. So that's why I say very, very strongly bootstrap it, right? Come up with your own funds. Figure out how to make it leaner, cheaper, whatever. Figure out how you can do it without having to get an investment. If it blows up and gets crazy and you just need to get some serious server space, at some point, you may need an investment. That's great. Bootstrap it as long as you can until it really hurts, right? Has anyone heard of Kickstarter? Kickstarter, okay. So what is Kickstarter? Somebody?
You can put your idea up on there and people can see your idea and donate money to it for something small, like have your name on our website or have it be in the credits on the ad, something like that, so they can build up money to get started.
Exactly. All right, so Kickstarter is this like crowdsourced funding machine. You don't owe those people the money back. You put their name on your website and say, thanks, right? This is huge. Okay, the bigger one, so if people donate on the higher tiers, you would actually give them something, maybe pre-release your software to them, or let them send their kid to your camp for the first summer for free, or whatever your project is, you may give them a bigger kickback.
Yeah, Easy Chair that used to be in.
Ooh, yes. Yep, go for it.
University Mall. They so they just closed down, but there's the Strange Coffee Company behind that, and they're actually on Kickstarter right now. And the highest donation actually gets to go with him to like South America and smell different kinds of coffee.
So and I actually really urge you to check that out. I was really depressed the day Easy Chair closed. Fun place. That's where we first met. Yeah, so they're on Kickstarter. They want to reopen. They want to open something, and I think they're thinking something a little bit different, a little bit crazier, more adventurous. But so the kickbacks, the biggest one, I guess, is to go to South Africa.
Yeah.
South Africa, and sniff coffee beans. That's awesome. How much do you have to pay for that? How much do you have to pledge?
Okay, I don't know. It was up there.
I bet.
It's in the thousands.
Okay, yeah. So the idea is, people can pledge an amount of money to your project. $5, $10,000. You set an amount. So say, I need $10,000 to make this project happen. X amount of people pledge $10, $20, $100 because they believe in your cause. At some point you pass that threshold and you get that cash. A lot of times it goes way over that before the time is even up. Diaspora, anyone heard of it? So it's kind of this anti-Facebook. They said they needed 10 or 20 grand. They got 200,000, more than $200,000 were pledged because so many people believed in their cause. Their cause was, privacy. If we decentralize a social network, we can control our privacy better. They took a stand against the centralized Facebook thing. I know I'm taking some serious digs at Facebook, but if you guys are ever interviewing me for a job there, I swear I love it. But so this is something, a tool that you can really use to get your project funded without investors, just people that believe in your cause, pledging money to you that you never owe back. It's at Kickstarter.com, a great resource to go to. Okay, so those are the essays. I wanted to hit on some idea generation tips. Okay, so these are big ones, right? The first one, who's not heard of it, scratch your own itch. What problems do you face every day? This is very much what Bus Tracker came out of. It's very much what Hungry Hooky came out of. It's very much what my email client project comes out of. Scratch your own itch. I face 60 to 80 emails a day, and that's below the average for this country, which is around 90 or 100 now. It's a pain, right? Who likes going through their inbox, right? Okay, that's good. I was afraid we were going to have to send somebody to cook. So scratch your own itch. What are your problems? And it doesn't even have to be your day-to-day problems. It could be your bigger problems that you see. Things that you see are missing in the world. Here's the second one. One of the exercises I like to do to kind of come up with project ideas or ideas to add to projects, make them better, is to just look at the most random tools, the most random technologies, and say, all right, what would I do with that? How would I integrate that? So the first one, very recently, does anyone work for Microsoft internships or anything here? Okay. So then I can't speak on this without sounding dumb because I don't actually know a whole lot about it. But so Microsoft just opened up the API to their Kinect. Okay, that's really interesting because the Kinect has a lot of fascinating sensors in just this one bar. It can do a lot. It can map out your entire skeleton digitally. Okay, not your skeleton, but your skeletal movement. And have a 3D person do exactly what you're doing, down to your arm and hand movements, and turning your head. Okay, it has a lot of really interesting sensors on it.
As kind of a side note, Microsoft, they just developed something where you can project an image onto something, and it's like you can push buttons. They use the same technology behind the Kinect for it.
Yep, that's interesting. That's cool. Yeah, so with stuff like that, when you look at a crazy tool like this, think about it, right? What would I do with that? What could I make with that? So with this, what would you do with that? Okay. Thoughts?
Before they actually officially released the SDK, people were using it for robots and stuff for distance checking. So.
I've seen an email client using the Kinect or something.
How so?
Oh yeah.
They
it's an interface.
I remember seeing it. They would just grab things and touch things.
So you just kind of in midair.
Exactly. Just
pull
like
your
react
email.
with the game. Exactly.
That would make it fun.
That would make email a little bit more interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. That's neat.
Delete something and just go.
Yeah, it was.
Twilio, it's an API. You buy a phone number, you can text and call. What would you do with this? What would you do with that? How would you integrate that in your project?
Wait, say that again. What was it?
Twilio, you buy a phone number, you can text or call to from your application. It interacts with your server. It's an API that calls your server through REST, so you can use any language stack, be on any server you want. But it handles all the crazy text-to-speech, it handles all the texting, everything. What would you do with that? We're starting a project that is inspired out of Bus Tracker, right? So company collapses, I have to leave it. And what do we do next, okay? There were a lot of really cool things that came out of that project. What could we build next? And so one of the things my team the new team identified was, what if we have a push notification thing? What if that's it? Instead of Bus Tracker, right? That's so 2011, okay? Right? What would be cool next? To say, hey, I got class at 10 a.m. And then it texts you 5 minutes before the bus gets to your stop. You don't have to tell it anything else, right? And so this is hugely what we were thinking about on the technology side of it. That's something we can really make happen using this technology. Okay. And the last one, all right? Another really cool way to come up with further ideas for your project is to make false constraints that aren't actually there. But then think about how would you solve the problem with that constraint. So here's two. And again, these are soft development, but this is an exercise you can use in any project. How would you design your app if it had to be on a circular screen? Right? That sounds ludicrous. That's one that I love doing. I find out some really interesting things about my user interface when I design it for a circular screen. Things get interesting quick. No interface, no standard interface, mobile or otherwise, would work well on a circular screen as is today. Especially no mobile interface. You know, if you think about Windows Phone, it bases itself on rectangles, right? Wouldn't work. Well, how would you design it for that? How would you design it for a giant touch surface table? This is Microsoft Surface. How would you design your application if you had a huge screen that was interacted with only through touch? You have no standard method of interaction. Okay. So the big takeaway that I kind of wanted to put out there, that I kind of wanted to kind of give to you guys, is to find your vision and to make it happen. To be crazy enough to solve real problems in society. To be smart enough to simplify your ideas to make them successful. To be confident enough to make the moves that you would need to make the change, make the project what you really want it to be. Don't lose yourself to a lack of confidence, right? You really have to ignore a lot of the criticism. Just be confident in what you're doing. Know why you're doing it. What is the point of your project? Why are you so passionate about it? And to be connected enough to the world to make your project successful. So this is largely why I pieced this presentation together. This is kind of what I wanted to convey. Another thing too, I would love to hear about kind of Hoki's projects, software and otherwise, anything, right? So please feel free to email me. Especially if you have any questions after tonight, please feel free to come up and talk, or feel free to email me. But I'd love to hear about what are your projects, right? How were you able to apply any of these methodologies to your project? Are they helpful? Do you completely disagree with any? You know, I would absolutely love to open a dialogue about some of that stuff. Okay, disagreeing with one of these items too. That's a great way for you to know that that's your stand on it. That's what your experience has been, and that's what you know works for you. That's great. You know, I'm glad that I can at least help you see what you don't like, right? So please, feel free to get in touch. Feel free to let me know, what are your projects? What are you doing? How are you making them successful? How are you finding your vision and making it happen? And don't forget to do that, right? We only live on this earth for a short while. Something, Steve Jobs kind of reminded me of, right? He was 55, 56. But, he found his vision, and he made things happen. So that's really what I wanted to challenge us with. Right? So thank you for your time. Please feel free to come up and talk after.